I'm actually really excited because it's the first time in the Walkie Talkies that the curators selected an artist book. And this is really wonderful because I'm a big fan of books. We are here at Studio Bruno Tonini, and here is what you chose. So would you like to introduce a little bit Liberty, the Studio Tonini, which is an incredible source of inspiration for the work on artist books and ephemerals?
Of course, what I love in Studio Tonini is that it's a family story. So Bruno and Sandra, the parents, started collecting books 40 years ago. And they have an insane collection of more than 40,000 copies. And they are collecting ephemeras and really rare, weird books. They know everything about it. So when you come to the stand, they will always explain you that this is dedicated to this person, etc. And I think in the history of art, artist book always has been such a big medium to express. And so I'm very happy that we decided to feature.
And also the work we have chosen is by an Indian artist, Dayanita Singh, who was born in 1961. And what's interesting is that she was trained in photojournalism. So she's a photographer. Her approach is very documentary. And books are really part of her practice. So this book, which is an artist book, but which was also an offer that Stedel, publisher, made to the artist. It's called Sent a Letter. And when you open it, you have 7 books. 6 of them are titled after Indian cities, and the 7th is the name of the artist's mother. So basically, it's a good mix of a practice which is always about our own history, our own memory, intertwined with India's history. Would you like to open one?
Of course. So what is interesting is that she did this when she traveled. She made librello of photography. So she collected them, she collaged them, and she always did 2 copies. One she kept and one she offered to a friend, and is why it's called Letter to a Friend. And so, for example, because you told the story with Stella, this one is a trip they did to different bookmakers in India.
So this one is Calcutta, right?
And it's a trip they did over the day with a publisher to find different paper maker and bookmaker, but also capture the journeys they did together over a day. And I think in her work is very interesting because you have this kind of photographic novel, or this collection of photographies that depict daily life, but also her own communities, and sometimes it's a really long timeline. So over years she will develop a project, and sometimes it's really reduced. And this one really feels like a day.
And in this ensemble of books, there are 140 images, and you could call them visual poems or even portable exhibitions in a way. Each book could be an exhibition itself, especially if you think it's a leporello. So it opens in space and could be shown on a wall.
And I think, the format of an artist book for such an intimate work of a journey, like the documentation of a journey, is like, you really have the opportunity when you engage with a work like this to enter a kind of intimacy with the artist, not like with the journey that they decided to share with the audience. So it's really like a little jewel, I would say, as you know, and Steidl is a master in this kind of, and I love that it says, put it in his pocket, no? Sent a letter, to my friend. On the way he dropped it, someone came and picked it up and put it in his pocket.
And this is inspired from a children's game, where they just drop objects and pick them up. And she said that the letter is the same of who sent it and who picked it up.
And it's also about letting the work go and have its own life, and ending in someone's, home in a way, or someone's pocket.
Well, beautiful. It's a great start, I would say. So let's see what comes next. And Liberty, you just started working at KW, one of the most important institutions in Europe and globally. So how are you envisioning this new start? What is coming up?
So we just opened a whole season. So one exhibition curated with director Emma Enderby from Holly Herdon and Matt Dryerhurst, with mixing art, music and machine learning. It's quite an interesting shows. There is also live singing that are then recorded to feed AI machines, so it's something to see and experience. And then we have another show of Kazuko Miyamoto with quite a seminal figure of minimal art from New York from the 60s and 70s. And this contrast is very interesting. It's intergenerational, and you see a lot of parallel, even though one is extremely contemporary and tech centered and the other is made out of strings and nails. So I think this kind of contrast is...
And dialogue.
In dialogue is always
Beautiful.
quite fantastic.
And here we are at the second proposition, and I think you managed to find, I mean, two curators, obviously. There's a thread and there's a journey. So as the book that we just saw here, you have another Leporello, but in this case is a beautiful drawing. So we are here at Sprovieri, a gallery from London, and it's Sandra Vázquez de la Horra. Would you like to introduce the work?
So Sandra Vázquez de la Horra was born in 1967 in Chile. And actually, Chile and Latin America is very important in our practice, especially on a ritualistic, memory-based practice, but also magic realism that you find in Latin American literature. Again, there is a relationship between art and literature. And our drawings are very specific in terms of techniques, but I will let Liberty tell about that. But influences come from botanical or zoological books, fairy tales, ancient mythologies, or ghosts, our personal ghosts, the ghosts of our country, Chile, and the ghosts of contemporary society.
What is quite fantastic with Sandra's work is she lives in Berlin since more than 2 decades, so I had the chance to visit her studio where she shows you how she produces her drawing. And it's paper on which she draw and she dip in beeswax. So a few minutes, and this kept a certain flexibility to the drawing. And it's in her medium, which she, as we can see, have a small drawing, a larger Leporello, but she also do really immersive installation where you can enter her whole universe. But it's very precarious, it's very nomadic. And this idea to be able to take your artwork, fold it, put it in your luggage and go is really part of her biography, of course. And I find this practice very unique.
And I think I'm wearing my white gloves, and I think we could try to reveal this moment, because actually it has a surprise. It's on the other side. This beautiful drawing is on both sides as a Leporello.
And it's the same image back. You have color in one side, black and white on the other side. And it's this profile of this woman crying. And the wax gives a beautiful materiality to the work. As you said, it's a drawing, but it's more than a drawing. It becomes a sculpture, as we can see, because the other drawings on the side are just pinned to the wall, very simple. And here it becomes an object. And the way it's shown, it's almost like she's overlooking us. She's looking at us as much as we're looking at her.
And she says something quite fantastic. She says that drawing is like a jazz jam. So she has so many inspiration, as you describe, about the female body, ancestor, mythology, etc., etc. And when she draws, she brings everything in and out. And it's like a jazz composition.
And beside that, what I really like, for example, of this other side of the image, that this looks almost like a cartography, you know, like when the lines that you do for the heights of mountains. So it's like almost playing with this idea of a cartography of the body. Right?
Of course. But the landscape and natural element have a very strong presence in her body and work.
Installation that was presented at the Venice Biennial, curated by Cecilia Alemani, you had a quite ambitious installation where indeed the body was a landscape in a way.
And she will, I think we should say that in just 10 days, she will open an incredible exhibition at Haus der Kunst.
Absolutely.
Really,
Yes.
you know, the program that Andrea Lissone is envisioning for the institution probably set her even more on the map of international art.
And it will be curated by Jana Baumann, which is a fantastic curator.
So actually this work gave me the opportunity to learn something that I didn't know, that the origin of the word Leporello. So Leporello is the name of the servant of Don Giovanni, and it comes from the fact that he was the one who was keeping the list of Don Giovanni's lovers. And it was so long that he had to fold the paper and to keep it in his pocket. So this shape of a folded paper
Italian.
that then
That's
opens up,
very Italian.
it comes from Don Giovanni,
I didn't
which
know.
I think
Well,
obviously...
we all learned something today.
Well, maybe, I think it's important to discuss with you, Daria, because, you've been curating at the Palais de Tokyo for a long, long time. Once again, another incredible institution in the contemporary landscape in Europe. But the institution is about to close, so I wonder, considering that you're also responsible for international relations in your role, what is coming up? How are you going to deal with the closing of the institution?
So the closing is 2 years from now, so we have a bit of time. But yes, Palais de Tokyo will close for 18 months for reconstruction works. The building is from the 30s and it has to be taken care of. And while the building is closed, the team will move, the activity, the program will move. We will still be Paris-based, but the idea is to do interventions in spaces that are not art spaces originally. So to go a bit out of usual tracks. And of course, it might be the occasion as well to develop more collaborations with colleagues both in France and abroad.
So beautiful. In the meantime, we have arrived at Supra Infinite, a beautiful gallery from Bucharest, Romania, where there is, I think, one of the most stunning presentations of the fair this year, especially in the way the work takes over, site-specifically, the booth of the fair. So would you like to tell us what are we experiencing? And I think we should go inside because actually experience is something that is very important in this work.
I curated a show in Bucharest 3 years ago, so I became more familiar with the scene. Supra Infinite is a great gallery, and this artist, Victoria Zidaru, is very important. She was born in 1956, so she's quite a figure already. And her work is really interesting because she's working both with man-made material, such as fabric, but also natural materials such as hay or lavender. She's very collaborative. You can't see it here, but she works with filmmakers, musicians, choreographers, and she has opened a place in the countryside, which is a place where nature, art, and community practices can act together.
Because I was told that she lives in a very small village, like only 200 people live there, and actually everything that we're showing and seeing here, the canvas is 100 years old, and this place is very known for being a place that produces canvases, but also for embroidery, and like everything that is written here is made in collaboration with the women that are living in the village,
exactly.
Right? And
yeah, and even the different plants you see stuffed, so we are smelling a lot of lavenders, but you can also see haze, and this is from her garden. So everything is sourced on site, and on the work that are presented here is a word in Latin, and a lot are inspired from Hildegard von Bingen, and Hildegard was a German abbess and polymath, and she was quite a fantastic figure from the 12th century. And we have been told that on these different column, I think we can almost say column or thread or wires, there is a different pillars of Hildegard's about like disciplines
16
and
virtues, no?
16
like
virtues,
have, patience, you have discipline.
Exactly.
And what's striking, I think, is the booth itself.
Yeah.
It's quite a statement because it's just one artist, one gesture, and it gives an idea of what the artist is, how the artist is working. Because if you see other works, it's very immersive, very site-specific as well. And here you see that it's a work that exists by itself, but was really thought to be installed to make the booth.
I was talking to the gallerist today, and she told me a sentence that the artist always refers to and mentions in relation to her work, which is art is not something to see, but it's something to experience.
Exactly.
And I think this is really the case when the physical experience of the work cannot be replaced by an image or by something that just a documentation of the work. And this is in a time where Instagram posts, we think, not us, but like people think that can replace the physical experience of the work. This is definitely a work that questions that.
And it's something we've been discussing a lot with Liberty, that an exhibition is an experience. Yeah. It's not just a topic, it's not just a list of artists, it's a physical experience, and it's a dialogue, of course, with the artist, but than with the audience, because everything we do is for an audience.
Yeah, you are surrounded by it. You really have, especially in these books, I think you have the smell, you have the physicality, you have the text, so many different layers.
As curators of institutions, like how do you function? How fairs are still important for your process? Do you use them to discover new voices, or like to reconnect, for example, in terms of networking with the galleries and artists that you have worked with before? I imagine both, but I'm curious to ask.
Definitely both. But what I love in fairs is that you have different scale of galleries. So you have the quite established that bring you position, historic or very established. But you also have the young gallery who bring you new perspective, new medium, new ideas, and they are from different areas. So for us, it's quite fantastic to come and discover or rediscover and keep some name in mind and be able to engage also with the gallery to hear more about the work.
And also in my position, I think it's the art world is an ecosystem, and we're all part of it. And so the fairs have a strong role to play. And depending on the fairs, some you won't make discovery. It's just seeing works that are at a certain level already known. Others will be very cutting-edge fairs. And I think, as you were saying, that Artissima is interesting because you have both like works from Mario Merz, for instance, but then you have also more emerging sections with emerging artists. And so it creates a kind of equilibrium, which is quite nice, especially here in Torino.
So we just arrived at the last proposition from a gallery P420, which is one of the most important galleries in Italy, based in Bologna. And it's a beautiful proposition, I must say. It's a Palestinian artist based in Beirut, Majd Abdel Hamid. Would you like to tell us more about it?
Yes, so Majd was born in 1988. He's mostly based in Beirut, but he's also traveling. I was lucky to work with him last year at Palais de Tokyo. He was trained both in Sweden and Palestine. And what's interesting is what we see here is a work of embroidery, but he was not trained as an embroiderer. It's a skill that he self-taught himself, and it's a skill that is a traditional Palestine embroidery, which is originally a feminine tradition. And so he has decided to learn this skill and to use it in his work to create these very delicate works that use very patient, very slow gestures, in contradiction with today's society, which is a society of images, moving images. Everything is always so quick, information is so quick and hectic. And then he makes these works, so you have to imagine him doing it, carefully, even if the works are small scale, very intimate in a way. You have to imagine the long hours of work to create this.
And I think the idea of repetition is also like therapy through repetition is a big part of the work. And here, for example, this series centered around Beirut, so it's adoptive city, and the different architectures of the city and how to picture like a place where you live and within abstract forms. And the color, there is a very interesting part of his work, which is inspired by ancestral tradition from Palestine, which is that when somebody died, the woman will dye some clothes with a bright color or strong color, and then through time and through washing the clothes, the original color will come up again. So, for example, in this booth, you also have a video where you see the artist cleaning the fabric, and with this idea of repetition and healing through this gesture.
And also I wanted to add that the title of this series is Muscle Memory. Yeah. And he wanted to invite a pattern linked to Beirut, as you were saying, because in Palestine, each region has its own pattern traditionally. And so his idea was to try to create a pattern that would be the pattern of Beirut, that he would invent himself.
So the pattern that you were describing of the embroidery, as you said, is made of references to patterns of specific from Palestine, but also this blue, I was told that it's kind of a reference to the harbor of Beirut. And I mean, in my experience when I went to Beirut, I really understood that it's all about, like there's a thread line that it's a before and after from the explosion that happened of the port. And I think, I really feel that he's putting together two stories of struggle, but also of resistance to this kind of form of cartography that he's embroidering on these surfaces.
You're right, because resilience is a very important word for him to describe his practice, both in the making, but also in the receiving, and create relationship with viewers.
Mm-hmm. And Lebanon has a long history of war and resilience and reconstruction. So, once again, what we found very touching and very inspiring in this body of work is the materiality, and how through simple, repetitive gesture and very accessible material, once again, we could say intimate, because you speak about clothing, some are wrapped from pajamas or blankets, or here kitchen towel. You are able to create a whole universe or tell a story that is much bigger than word. And I think in his work is quite poetic and quite beautiful.
And I think it's even more when this is done thanks to a smaller scale. Like you don't have to have gigantic scale to impress, but you can do something very touching and small and still be extremely meaningful and layered.
And also embroidery and textile art has a huge and very important position within art history. And in the whole world, you had artists who took this very accessible tools that many have home to make fantastic piece of art. So it comes also in a long history, in a long tradition.
And also at a moment when traditional skills and crafts such as embroidery, weaving, ceramics is really back on tracks in contemporary practice, especially with artists who say for them there is no difference between art and craft. It's one and the same. But Mart also works with other techniques.
Yeah, with film. So for example, in this presentation, we see him washing the fabric that was dyed in reference to this ancestral tradition.
Well, and I have to give you kudos because, of course, you chose the work before the awards were announced, but the video and two of the works have been acquired by Castello di Rivoli thanks to the acquisition fund of the Fondazione Arte CRT, and I think that definitely you have good eyes.
You have good eyes.
So I don't know.
And good for him.
And good for him, definitely. Good for him and for the gallery. I think on this note, I think we can close this beautiful tour that we have. Thank you so much for taking part of this. And yes, thank you.
Ciao, thank you.
Thank you.